Good afternoon, everybody. I think we can get started. Today is Wednesday, June 4th. Welcome to another Housing and Homelessness Committee meeting. Mr. Verano, do you want to call the roll?
Councilmember Rahman.
I am here.
Councilmember Jurado, absent. Councilmember Blumenfield.
Present.
2 members and a quorum, Madam Chair.
Okay, great. Today we have 9 items on the agenda, but I think because there was a issue with how the city attorney's office uploaded the ordinance, we're going to have to continue item 5 to our next meeting. We don't want to cause any issues procedurally with that. Item 1 is a verbal update from LASA on CES. I know we had this discussion last week or 2 weeks ago, but LASA wasn't able to provide their inputs, and so they just want to make sure and give their feedback to this committee on that issue. Item 2 is a CAO report about the new bed rate for transitional aged youth. So this is part of our bed rate changes that we're making. Item 3 is CAO and LAHD's report about an MOU with the California Housing Finance Agency and also issuing a fee study for a bond program. Item 4 is a CAO and LAHD report on amending the just cause for eviction ordinance related to an issue that's called substantial remodels. And this was an issue that was brought to the council's attention by Councilmember Blumenfield. Item 5, we're continuing. Item 6 is an LAHD report related to the Affordable Housing Linkage Fee Program and some challenges that program is facing. Item 7 is a motion related to LAHD being asked to create performance measures for the new Bureau of Homelessness Oversight. It's just a motion. It's my motion, actually. Item 8 is a motion instructing relevant departments to report back on ending the local state of emergency on homelessness. And item 9 is a motion instructing that funds from the HHH Permanent Supportive Housing Loan Program, seeing whether these can be used for ED1 projects. So I want to now take public comment. Mr. Custodio, if you could provide instructions for public comment, and we do have Councilmember McCosker here, and we're going to allow him the opportunity to speak. Do you want to speak now? Okay, great. Yes. Please, welcome. Thank you for coming.
And for the record, Madam Chair, Councilmember Jurado has arrived.
Okay, wonderful. Welcome.
Councilmember Rahman, thank you so much for asking me to come up, and members, thank you for giving me an opportunity to speak very briefly on item 8. I just want to add some additional context, which I know you all have, and I appreciate the complexity of the issues that you deal with here. You can't imagine how much I appreciate the hard work that you do with one of the most important issues facing us today. I want to be very clear, if I wasn't before, that the mayor's implementation of the emergency orders 2.5 years ago was a dramatic and important leadership moment, and greatly appreciated, that has shown results that continue to be measured, are measurable, but are continuing to be measured through other fora, and I think that's all important. But as we move into this era, this period of time, I think it really is important for us to, in a very deliberative way, and Councilmember, I appreciate co-introducing this motion with you. I think it's important for us to do the analysis, to see what we have before us, to get directions and information back from our departments, to see how in the inevitable moment, whether it's tomorrow or some period after tomorrow, we know that the emergency orders will end, but not the urgency and not the importance of this matter. But we need to get back the information from our departments about how we would proceed to continue with the urgency, but also have the transparency and just the ability to be responsive and provide information to our constituents about how we are proceeding to address the homelessness crisis. I think it's also important in this motion that we have it's very important that we added the discussion to analyze the responsibilities of the county vis-a-vis the city. And I think that the county also recognizes the importance of that. The county has the full rights to pull money out and ultimately pull out of LASA, that's their choice, and to set up a department. But I think the motion that the Supervisor Horvath introduced yesterday in the Board of Supervisors meeting is indicative of what needs to happen next. That motion is really calling for the formation of the county department to include reaching out to you, Madam Chair, and other actors in the city government to begin to identify this line of responsibility, this, the framework of responsibility between the county and what gaps may still exist that the city can fill. And I think the intention is to move forward with eyes wide open and have a very deliberative and careful analysis of what responsibilities the county is taking on by setting up the department and drawing legitimately, legally drawing monies to themselves, and how that will affect the city and how the city can work cooperatively, work towards our own purposes, but also be in cooperation with the county so that we don't have an overlap of services or a misuse of dollars. I may be too hopeful when I say that, but I think that's the intent. I know clearly that's our intent, and I appreciate the work that you all are doing, and I look forward to this item being, item 8 being discussed here and then brought forward to the council.
Thank you so much, Councilmember McCosker, and once again, just wanted to underscore my appreciation for your attention to this issue. And a state of emergency, I think, also allows us to fast-track some of the traditional processes that we have here in Los Angeles, which are sometimes very useful for oversight and accountability, but also slow down our actions. And it is important for us to be able to balance both of those as we move forward with something that is inevitably going to be a piece of LA's work, even as we potentially move out of a state of emergency related to it. So thank you for bringing our attention to that, and thank you for your comments.
Thank you, and I know your intention is to continue to be urgent, transparent, and accountable.
Yes, exactly.
So thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, Mr. Custodio, if you want to read instructions for other commenters.
Thank you, Madam Chair. To the members of the public, when it is your turn to speak, please state the name you signed up under, which of the agenda items you would like to speak on, and whether you would like to provide general public comment. You have 1 minute per item, up to 2 minutes total for items on the agenda, and 1 minute for general public comment if you wish, for a maximum speaking time of up to 3 minutes per person. Please speak to the agenda items before beginning general public comment. We will inform you when your time is up. When speaking on the agenda items, you must be on topic. Our goal is to get through as many speakers as we can. If you are not speaking on topic, or if we cannot tell whether you are on topic, you will get one brief warning from me or Madam Chair. If you do not immediately get clearly on topic, or if you stray off topic, you will forfeit the rest of your time, and we will move on to the next speaker.
Okay, we're going to move through this public comment as quickly as we can. I'm going to call up Robert, Natasha Gascon, Fred Sutton, Chelsea Kirk, Brittany Rivas, Adriana Martinez. If you could make your way to the right side, and the sergeant will direct you to the podium. Go ahead. Welcome.
Honorable
Mr. Sutton.
number 4 in general public comment, please.
Okay, you have 1 minute for the item and 1 minute for general public comment.
Council members, Fred Sutton with the California Apartment Association. We respectfully ask for the city to maintain a clear and streamlined path for substantial rehabilitation for AB 1482 properties, or at the very least, examine and study this further. We'd also request that the committee initiate a review and reform of the RSO's primary renovation program, especially for the cases that meet the substandard definition. The report says that there are about 40 of these a year that are taking place in AB 1482 that were approved, and that's including single-family homes, I believe. Despite the anecdotal claims of misuse, these numbers clearly show the program is not being used abusively or excessively. If you look at those numbers compared to the substantial or primary renovation numbers under RSO, those are getting about 10 a year, and I'm not sure if those have actually been completed. you have your largest part of your housing stock and your oldest part of your housing stock having far less applications. If you go with option one and you take away this ability to reclaim these units, you're going to be putting owners in the same position that owners in RSO find themselves, in a real difficult place to be able to do these major renovations when they occur. They don't happen often, but when you are in a major situation, you really don't have much alternative. We've heard for years from owners that the primary renovation program does not provide an economical or viable pathway to really conduct this extensive work. So I hope you guys have a thorough discussion on it. Yeah, this is an interesting policy decision for the city. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next speaker.
Hi, hello. I'm going to be speaking on item 4.
Okay, you have 1 minute. I'm sorry, I'm going to ask that you just move a little closer to the microphone or move the microphone closer to you so we can hear you.
All right, is that better?
Much better, thank you.
All
And
right.
tell me your name again?
My name is Robert Cooper.
Okay.
I'm here on behalf of Scope. I'm a community organizer. We here on behalf of Scope and on behalf of South Los Angeles strongly support option 1 for permanent ordinance. It is the only option that actually prevents displacement and preserves affordability by eliminating the substantial remodel loophole. And we also encourage the council to pass a permanent ordinance immediately to ensure that there are no gaps in the protection. Being a community organizer, I have to deal with disadvantaged communities in this city quite often, and too often do I hear that people have been evicted or displaced because their landlords were able to remodel their home and then chose to not have them come back. And it's a real issue, especially in places like South Los Angeles. So once again, we urge you guys to support option 1 and the permanent ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, and I'll call a couple of other names. Audit LA, David Albright, Laura Gracia, Lily Morse. Go ahead. Your name and the items you're speaking on?
Yep, Chelsea Kirk, agenda item 4.
Okay, you have 1 minute.
Thank you. And I also signed up for general public comment.
Okay, 2
Thank you.
minutes.
Good afternoon. I first want to thank Councilmember Blumenfield for leading the fight to end renovictions in LA. Across California, from San Diego to Humboldt, tenants are being renovicted, and seeing what we've been able to achieve here in Los Angeles has been given them hope that they too can close this glaring loophole that is used to skirt rent control. So thank you, Councilmember, for championing this issue. Per LAHD's report, which is what we're discussing today, option 1 is the only real solution here. It fully eliminates substantial remodel as grounds for eviction, and it doesn't create unnecessary administrative burden. Options 2 and 3 fail to close the loophole, and they make the whole issue convoluted. They're burdensome for both tenants and the city, and so we urge you to support option 1 and option 1 only. Finally, on the recommendation to extend the temporary ordinance until January 2026, I have to ask, why is this taking so long? We passed our original motion in October of 2024. It has been 8 months. This should have been finished already. We absolutely need a permanent ordinance. But again, if we can't do this before the expiration on August 1st, by any means necessary, let's extend it to January 2026 to prevent the lapse in protections. But in any case, let's get this done. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next speaker.
Hello, Council. My name is Natasha Gascon. I'm an advocate, and I'm just going to get straight to the point because...
Sorry, before you get started, what item are you speaking on?
Item 4, but...
Okay, you have 1 minute for the item. Please
yes,
continue. Thank you.
The reason why I want to talk about this, not only about evictions, but this item will be referred or recommended to the Housing and Homelessness Personnel and Hiring Committees. I've not only battled LASA, and I've battled HACLA and the Housing Authority of Los Angeles viciously, and now I'm battling LAHD. There's a personnel issue, and I almost got unlawfully evicted because my landlord, on-site management, decided to talk to a Housing Authority of Los Angeles employee, and this employee would not get off my case, remove themselves from my case. They are very unethical. They are very hard to deal with. I asked by the HACLA bylaws. I personally asked, look, this person is acting very unethically, and by their bylaws, they are supposed to remove themselves, even if there's a small miscommunication. It's very easy to replace case manager, and I've had this issue within the whole housing and homelessness system. I'm just recommending for personnel hiring, it'd be a little bit more strict. I think that would help a lot of these issues to begin with.
I appreciate that comment. Thank you very much. Next speaker, and I'll call a couple of other names. Alex Jassett, Laura Matter, Adriana Martinez, Jesus Rojas. Go ahead. Your name and the items you're speaking on.
Brittany Rivas, and speaking to item 4.
Okay, you have 1 minute. Go ahead.
My name is Brittany Rivas, and I'm the care coordinator at Communities for a Better Environment, working in CD 15, specifically in Wilmington, and speaking on agenda item 4. Please support option 1 for a permanent ordinance to end rent evictions. Hundreds of people have been displaced due to renovation work. This is an urgent problem that the City Council unanimously voted to put an end to with temporary ordinance. Now City Council must vote to extend option 1. This is the only option for a permanent ordinance that actually stops landlords from evicting tenants for renovation work. There's no reason anyone should lose their home due to renovation work, especially when their landlord is doing it with the intent to flip units and rent them out for more money. Our community members in Wilmington suffer from industrial pollution ranging from ports to refineries to oil drilling. Our communities alongside the other frontline communities cannot further bear the burden of accumulative health impacts, and if no permanent policy like option 1 moves forward, then folks will get displaced, adding further to unhoused population. And we know our unhoused neighbors face the brunt of climate health impacts head on. So by having this policy move forward, it can help our most vulnerable community members. Vote option 1. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And before we get to the next speaker in the pews, I want to turn it over to Audit LA for their comment. Go ahead.
Thank you, Ms. Rahman. How are you today?
I'm okay.
Okay. Hi, Bob. Okay, so I want to talk about the situation.
So is all items in general public comment, I'm assuming?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so that time is now on the clock. Please continue. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I have a good friend named Marie, and she lives in Australia, and she's like, and they all watch and what's going on here, and like she just almost wants to ask can we take down the Olympic flags until we really deal with the homeless crisis and help everyone find housing? And I think that's a really beautiful sentiment. Let's really push to get this done, because when the Olympics are coming, we want everyone to be housed, and we want everyone safe, and everything. I know I can't talk about sidewalks and stuff now, but we could talk about housing. And then when it comes to the right to counsel, I think everyone kind of has a right to counsel, but there just has to be laws where it's fair, because otherwise it could just be a big money grab for lawyers if there's no, if everything's so cut and dry and it's like, okay, you didn't pay your rent, you're out type of thing. I don't know if that's really going to help. There needs to be a way to really help people who are in that situation where, maybe they're just a couple paychecks away, or they're just struggling to, I don't know if it's through maybe loans, like forgivable loans or something once they pay it. But I don't know. There just has to be other options besides just having a lawyer and just, hoping they find housing. And we just have to make it easier on people. It's really tough times now. And then I see that there's a lot of fees being increased these days, but on the people, and it's just making it harder. Like, I wish you guys would forgive the annual fee on apartment renters and all these things. Like, I think if you would give people certain breaks, they could hopefully afford the situation and not be on the verge of being unhoused. And then when it comes to the tiny homes, I just want to say that I've had several people who've lived in them tell me that they're often half empty, which I guess means they're half filled, if you're an optimist or a pessimist type of thing, but at the same time, they should be completely filled. And I don't know what the obstacle is. I know in like CD2, they have a lot of strict rules about it. It's like you have to be there, live there for 6 months. Public comment now, right? Okay.
Yes, you have 1 more minute.
Okay, so, all right, so now I can talk about anything. So I can say hi to Bob again. Happy to see you, Bob. And I'm worried about Bob's constituents, because I don't want anyone to go and not vote for him again because they're like, he didn't help take care of the housing problem. So we have to help Bob, okay? We have to help Bob. And that being said, I also think that, when it comes to housing, there's a lot of places that could do better and help, maybe make room. Me personally, I would say Scientology, right? They have all that space, make room. But there's other places too that can maybe help make room and make, at least like as an interim, like, or a shelter type of thing, or to help out, like, especially like religious organizations that say they're there to help people, or any of these agencies. If they have the space, why not work with the city or the city work with them to, especially since you're tax exempt, right? They're not paying any taxes, they're not contributing, but maybe they can contribute that way and help us house people. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next speaker. Your name and the items you're speaking on.
Yeah, hi, my name is Adriana Martinez, and I'm speaking on item 4.
Okay, you have 1 minute. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Adriana Martinez, and I'm a tenant in Council District 10, speaking on agenda item 4. I'm coming to you to ask for support in option 1 for a permanent ordinance to end reno-evictions. I've worked assisting tenants in LA City and witnessed firsthand how even in rent-stabilized units, property owners have tried to circumvent the renovation protections that already exist in LA City. So with tenants under the Tenant Protection Act and other tenants who live in units not covered by any rent controls, live day by day at the discretion of property owners. We are in a housing crisis and tenants literally have no other housing options. We must protect Angelenos and move forward with option 1. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please. And we'll call a couple more speakers. Let's see, I think I've called a lot of these. I just have Christopher Dorner and Tony McBride as our remaining speakers. Go ahead.
Yeah, agenda item 4. So hi, my name is Laura. I'm with Communities for a Better Environment. I live in Council District 1, but I'm a stakeholder in Council District 15. You know, we're here today to make sure that you all support option 1 and permanently end reno-evictions. There is no reason anyone should lose their home due to a renovation work, especially when their landlord is doing it with the intent to potentially flip units and rent them out for more money. So we're asking you to vote for option 1. Our community members in Wilmington face environmental racism daily from refineries, oil drilling, and as the city is grappling with how do we protect people from future wildfires, from the existing infrastructure that's harming their health, the best way to protect them is by making sure that they stay housed. We truly believe that environmental justice is housing justice, and therefore we really support option 1. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I realize I didn't call a couple of speakers, who I'll call now. The speakers I didn't call are Jamie Cusick, Jason Reedy, Emily Filkin, Christine Rodriguez, and Lily Morse. And that's all of our speakers. If you could make your way to the side. Your name and the items you're speaking on.
Hi, yes, I'm Lily Morse, and I'm speaking on agenda item 4.
Okay, you have 1 minute.
Hi, I'm Lily. I'm a student from Los Angeles, and today I'm asking you to please support option 1 for a permanent ordinance to end reno-evictions. Los Angeles will soon mandate electrification and energy efficiency upgrades to residential buildings, including rental units, but these upgrades will cause evictions if the council does not act now to close a substantial remodel loophole. Option 1 is the only policy that truly prevents displacement. Options 2 and 3 make it harder for landlords to fraudulently evict tenants, but do nothing to prevent lawful substantial remodel evictions from taking place. There's no reason anyone should lose their home due to renovation work, especially when their landlord may be doing it to flip units and rent them out for more money. Please vote for option 1 and extend the ban to ensure there are no gaps in protections. Thank you.
No excuses. Thank you so much. Next speaker, your name and the items you're speaking on.
David Albright, item number 4.
Okay, you have 1 minute. Go ahead.
Thank you. My name is David Albright, and I'm an organizer with the Los Angeles Tenants Union. I organize in Council District 9, and I would like to say that the problem of reno-evictions is absolutely endemic across Los Angeles. It doesn't happen in one council district. It happens in all council districts. The landlord lobby has attempted to portray the problem of reno-evictions as an occasional bad faith occurrence or a small loophole that happens every now and then, the landlords take advantage of every now and then. But we actually know that it's a major tactic of displacement. for working class tenants across Los Angeles. So I urge you to support option number 1 for a permanent ordinance to end rent evictions and to close the loophole now. We need this loophole closed now to stop this problem of mass displacement happening in Los Angeles, which is increasing homelessness in all of our communities across LA. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your testimony. Next speaker, your name and the items you're speaking on.
Hi, my name is Jesus Rojas. I'll be speaking on item number 4.
Okay, you have 1 minute. Go ahead.
Thank you. My name is Jesus Rojas. I'm from the Apartment Association of Greater Los Angeles. AGLA strongly opposes option number 1 and the extension of a moratorium until January 31st, 2026, as further delaying major system repairs is extremely reckless and destroys needed affordable rental housing. Option number 1 is not a loophole, but designed by the state of California. No RSO units non-RSO units are not the same as RSO units. Contrary to RSO units that are under a rent increase cap, there is no financial incentive for non-RSO owners to misuse substantial remodels in order to increase rents. Thus, non-RSO property owners only undertake substantial remodels when they are needed to maintain the property in a safe and habitable condition. In addition, mom-and-pop owners with 20 or fewer units do not have enough vacant units to relocate renters during major system repairs. This is something only large corporations with hundreds of units could do. Therefore, it is not an option.
Thank you so much. Next speaker, your name and the items you're speaking on.
Good afternoon. My name is Alex Jassett, and I'm speaking on item 4 in general public comment, please.
Okay, you have 1 minute for the item and 1 minute for general public comment.
All right, thanks. Good afternoon. I'm here on behalf of Physicians for Social Responsibility Los Angeles, a resident of CD1, and also as a member of the Los Angeles for Resilient and Healthy Homes Coalition. First off, I would like to thank Councilmember Blumenfield and his staff for working with community groups and affected residents to close the harmful rent eviction loophole. And also thank you to Chair Rahman for continuing to elevate this issue and for both of your commitments to getting this done. The LAHD report recommends option 1, which is removing substantial remodel as a basis for eviction, as the cleanest and most effective way to carry out the will of the council, and we agree with that assessment. We strongly urge you to move forward with option 1, as there are risks and unintended consequences associated with the other options. The goal of this motion was to protect tenants from unfair evictions and create stability for tenants and clarity for landlords as the city, region, and state continue to pursue residential electrification and climate resilience upgrades. And we believe that option 1 is the only way to achieve this. Thank you
so much. Next speaker, your name and the items you're speaking on.
Hello, Laura Matter. I'm an attorney at Inner City Law Center on number 4 in general public comment.
Okay, you have 1 minute for the item, 1 minute for general public comment. If you could move the microphone a little closer to you, we'll hear you.
Oh, okay. I'm asking the council to opt for option number 1 on item 4, and thank you, Councilmember Blumenfield, for your leadership on this issue. I'd just like to respond to a few of the points from CAA and AGLA. There is a financial incentive to turn over units that are not RSO and are only JCO because a lot of those units are covered by the Tenant Protection Act's rent cap. So there absolutely is a financial incentive to flip those units. And if major system repairs are needed in a property, a landlord is already required to complete those repairs. So that is just sort of a straw man argument. Option 1 is the only option that effectively closes the loophole, and it brings the JCO in line with the termination reasons under LARSO, and it simply makes sense if these 2 ordinances are consistent. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next speaker, your name and the items you're speaking on.
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Christine. I live in Pasadena. I'm also part of the Pasadena Rental Housing Board, representing.
Just what item are you speaking on?
Oh, I'm speaking on item 4, and I also signed up for general comment.
Okay, you have 1 minute and 1 minute. Go ahead.
Got you. So, as I was saying, I'm part of the Pasadena Rental Housing Board. I'm coming here as an individual. I work for the Los Angeles Center for Community Law and Action, where I advocate for tenant rights. I'm here to encourage you folks to make the very important decision to vote in favor of option 1. Option 1 is the best option to decrease homelessness for families and specifically for elderly people. In my work, I have seen many landlords go into both non-RSO RSO and RSO housing and say to folks, we are going to renovate, you folks need to get out of this place, and folks are scrambling to figure out where they're going to live. Option one will close this loophole by making it unacceptable to do a substantial remodel. Remodels can happen, but they have to be in compliance with the law. In addition, this option is needed in order to, again, prevent people from being out on the streets. I want to also encourage you folks to extend this ordinance. I have been following this since October of last year, and it is now June of 2025. If you can, I really encourage you folks to extend the ordinance to January and onward in order to, again, prevent homelessness for the constituents of Los Angeles. I thank you for your time, and again, I encourage you to vote in favor of option one for the prevention of homelessness for people in your districts. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next speaker, your name and the items you're speaking on.
Hi, my name is Emily Filkin. I'm speaking on item number 4.
Okay, you have 1 minute. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Emily. I am a tenant in City Council District 8, and I am a member of the Rent Brigade. Please support option number 1 for permanent ordinance to end rent evictions. Rent evictions are a serious problem for tenants like me who aren't protected by Los Angeles' rent stabilization ordinance. Hundreds of people have been displaced by renovation work, and my family could be next if you do not act immediately. This is an urgent problem that City Council unanimously voted to put an end to with the temporary ordinance. Now City Council must pass option number 1. Option number 1 is the only option for a permanent ordinance that actually stops landlords from evicting tenants for renovation work. Please vote for option number 1 and ensure there are no gaps in protections. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next speaker, your name and the items you're speaking on.
Sorry, I didn't want that to fall off while I was going. Dexter O'Connell, I'll be speaking on item number 2 and general public comment, please.
Okay, you have 1 minute and 1 minute. Go ahead.
Great, thank you. Hello, members of the committee. A genuine pleasure to be here with you today. Dexter O'Connell with Safe Place for Youth, also a person with lived experience of a renoviction by a landlord with only 2 units. Safe Place for Youth appreciates the proposed increase in the bed night rate for transition age youth. We appreciate the effort, intention, and thoughtfulness that went into these increases. Young people have unique needs and deserve unique services that meet those needs. Our expert staff who provide those services need dignified wages to perform this work. These increases in the bed night rate for young people will be extremely helpful in providing those services and delivering them at the high level to which we hold ourselves and which our members deserve. Please approve the increases in item number 2. On general public comment, we just want to encourage this committee to coordinate intentionally with La Casa, with the new county department, to use their money and also HAP funding that hopefully you all are advocating for in Sacramento right now to effectively serve young people and not make these bed night rate increases a single piece, but rather part of a cohesive whole that effectively serves the city and young people who live outside of the city together with your intention and with purpose. Thank you very much for your time. And please vote yes on item number 2.
Okay. Thank you so much. Next speaker, your name and the items you're speaking on.
Hi, my name is Angela Bai. I'm speaking on item number 4 and general public comment.
Okay, you have 1 minute and 1 minute. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. I'm a resident in Council District 14. I'm here with the Los Angeles Alliance for a New Economy, which is a member of the Los Angeles for Resilient and Healthy Homes Coalition. Please support option number 1 for permanent ordinance to end rent evictions. We're advocating for you to adopt option 1 as the permanent ordinance to prohibit evictions on the basis of substantial remodel, and option 1 is the only option that fully provides that protection. The City Council has previously supported the exact same policy, and we're urging you to just make it permanent now. We're in a time of climate crisis, and to address this, we need to mandate building electrification and energy-efficient upgrades to residential buildings, including rental units. These upgrades will cause evictions if council does not act now to close the substantial remodel loophole. There's no reason anyone should lose their home due to renovation work that makes their home safer, healthier, and more climate resilient, especially when their landlord is doing it with the intent to flip units and rent them out for more money. Okay, thank you, Councilmember Blumenfield, for your support of this issue. Your leadership has been essential for this crucial effort. We're asking you to please vote for option 1 and keep Angelinos in their homes. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next speaker. Your name and the items you're speaking on.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Karen Romero Estrada. I'm speaking on item number 4.
Okay, you have 1 minute. Go ahead.
I'm a climate justice associate with SCOPE, which is a membership-based organization in
Sorry,
South LA.
I'm just going to ask you to bring the microphone. Yeah, there we go.
Thank you. I'm the climate justice associate at SCOPE, which is a membership-based organization in South LA, and we are also a member of the Los Angeles for Resilient and Healthy Homes Coalition. I'm here to talk about item number 4, and first I want to thank Councilmember Blumenfield for supporting and leading the work on closing the substantial remodel loophole. As my colleague said earlier, many of SCOPE members and their loved ones have experienced eviction or the threat of eviction due to substantial renovation work. No one should have to experience this. We urge City Council to vote to adopt option number 1 as detailed by the Housing Department report, as it is the only option that actually protects tenants from housing instability by preventing landlords from evicting their tenants due to substantial remodels. Furthermore, SCOPE's work is closely monitoring the city's decarbonization efforts. We recognize the need to holistically make our homes more healthy and climate resilient, but we cannot allow renovations to exacerbate the existing housing crisis. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. And our final speaker, I believe. Your name, actually.
And I will speak on everything. 3 minutes. Pay attention. Item number 1.
Sorry,
is
speaker.
about the
one thing I just wanted to ask. Sorry, if you could pause his time, speaker. Okay.
What is the update about the Los Angeles Homeless Authority, Homeless Health Services Authority? That you are being sued. That is the update that I can tell you. What is another update? That Judge Carter is currently evaluating and auditing and hearing the argument from both sides in the court right now. That is another update I can give it to you. And then the mayor, Karen Bass, and then the council president are not willing to testify under oath in front of the judge. That's another update I can give it to you. And I would assume this so-called homeless services committee chair, I dare her to testify in front of the judge talking about her Los Angeles Homeless Services Authority. I dare her to testify under oath, under perjury. Now let's move on to item number 7. Item number 7 is about homelessness oversight. And then I want to, again, I really don't know that since this creature take over the position that I see there's no homeless oversight. Because who can tell me the question that where did the 200 million go? Who can tell who can answer the question to the judge that how many beds are actually created using that 200 million? And where is the oversight? And then the city controller, Kenneth Mejia, are trying to, I want to audit how you spend your money on homelessness. And then oversight, and then the mayor said, I will not allow you to audit. Now, we're continuing to talk about oversight. I think your oversight is the biggest failure, corruption, scam in the history of city of Los Angeles. And I hope one day every single one of you will have to, no choice but under perjury, under oath to testify in front of the judge. Now, we are in a homeless crisis right now. Why? Because so many LAPD officers are homeless in LA. They have to live all the way down in Orange County because they cannot afford a house in LA. We have so many amazing LAPD officers that they want to purchase a house in Skid Row, in Figueroa Street, so they can respond to the 911 calls much quicker. But unfortunately, they are homeless in LA. They have to live 2 hours away in Orange County. So that time, every time we call 911, those homelessness officers have to respond to the call after 2 hours later in the traffic. Now, why we are continuing to allowing our officer to be homeless? Why we continue to allow our officer to live so far away? We need more homeless services to our LAPD officer. We need more salary increase to our LAPD officer.
Thank you. And I believe that's our final speaker. So let's close public comment. Members, I am going to suggest that we move items 2, 3, 7, 8, and 9 on consent today. And Mr. Bloomfield, I understand you may have an amendment for item 7.
I do, and for item 8, both minor amendments.
Okay.
For 7 and 8, I have minor amendments.
You have amendments for, okay, sure. Do you want to read your amendments for items 7 and 8? Do you want discussion on those items?
No.
Okay. Do you want to read your
Sure.
amendments for those
item
items?
7, it's basically request the city attorney to prepare and present an ordinance that exempts the creation of the new positions and functions of the Bureau of Homelessness Oversight from Executive Directive 3, and to instruct the CAO and the Housing Department to instead submit reports to the mayor and council simultaneously for matters pertaining to the Bureau of Homelessness Oversight as an exemption to executive. We took this action in budget.
Yeah.
This is just to keep everything parallel. It's nothing new. It's the exact same language.
Great, and I'm happy to second
Okay.
and accept that amendment.
And then-
And for item 7, or I'm sorry, item 8.
For item 8 is also a similar clarification, which is we, basically the amendment would say in the emergency report back, instruct the CLA with the assistance of the city attorney to develop recommendations within 30 days for consideration of adoption that enables the city to continue operating interim housing sites on city-owned properties and expedites the development of interim housing sites even if there's no longer a declared emergency, and instruct the CAO with the assistance of the city attorney and the Los Angeles Housing Department to develop recommendations within 30 days to enable payment of existing contracts and invoices with minimal payments for the Inside Safe program, even if there's no longer a declared emergency.
Sorry, with what?
This is the exact same language that we adopted in council as an amendment to the last HEA.
Okay,
It's an
yes.
instruction. It's basically saying, if we do wind down the emergency, what happens to the 750 units on Rec and Parklands, and what happens to our contracts? I think most of this is really subsumed in what Mr. McCosker has already put forward. But there was some question that my team had about whether it did it exactly, and so the easiest thing to do is just belt and suspenders, take the language that we have, add it to Mr. McCosker's thing, then it could all be in one file. It's getting at the exact same question. This is just making sure that what we adopted in council is also included in this report. So
Okay.
hopefully it's not controversial since we all voted on it.
I'm happy to second that amendment as well, and take up these items as amended. I wanted to just make a brief comment on item 7, which is, there were, I think, some questions raised about who is involved in conversations around homelessness oversight in Los Angeles. And in my mind, these conversations have been had very robustly in this committee meeting and have also moved to the full council, where we've had robust discussions there, sometimes very, very lengthy discussions there, on what kind of oversight and management there is for our homelessness system. This motion will enable us to have the performance measures that this new bureau will use to oversee and manage our system presented to this committee and then taken up in full council, so that these measures can be the ones that the entire body thinks are the most important and feasible for us to be able to evaluate our system, and so that we can move forward with hopefully with consensus on these issues. So that was the intent behind this, and I hope that this motion will get your support. So with that, Mr. Verano, if we could call the roll on these items.
Madam Chair, for item number 3, there's also an amendment recommended by LAHD that they would like read into the record. Would you
Okay,
like to?
that's great. And I just also realized I didn't give other committee members an opportunity to pull any of these items off consent. Okay, yes, please read the item for, the amendment for item 3.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For item number 3, Council File 19-0334, LHD is requesting to amend recommendation number 2 to read as follows. Authorize the LHD to issue a request for proposals to conduct a fee study for the Affordable Housing Bond Program and other housing development programs to ensure fees continue to provide full cost recovery and that there are fees to address other operational needs.
Okay, fabulous. And do I need to,
Would you like to move those forward?
I would like to move that amendment forward, yes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So if you'd like to proceed with your consent items, we could vote on 2, 3, 7, 8, and 9 as approved, with 3, 7, and 8 as amended.
Perfect.
Councilmember Rahman.
Yes.
Councilmember Jurado.
Yes.
Councilmember Blumenfield.
Blumenfield, aye.
These items are approved with 3, 7, and 8 as amended.
Wonderful. Okay, thank you very much. Now let's move, and Ms. Jurado, you may not have been here when I mentioned this, but item 5 is continued. So let's move on to item 4, which is Councilmember Blumenfield's item.
Item number 4 are City Administrative Officer and Los Angeles Housing Department reports relative to amending the just cause for eviction ordinance pertaining to substantial remodels, resolution authority of 2 positions to implement and perform the substantial remodeling support functions for the non-rent stabilization ordinance, residential housing rental units, and related matters.
Okay, wonderful. So if we could have, I believe we have staff here from LAHD. Okay. And if you could make your way to the desk, welcome. And Councilmember Bloomfield, I'm going to turn it over to you since
Great.
this has been
Thank you.
your baby.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I'll start by saying, look, I appreciate the work of the CAO and LAHD on this policy initiative, which I introduced because I do not believe it's fair to evict someone from their home if they're 100% in good standing with their landlord just because the landlord wants to remodel the unit. But I am disappointed that the housing report doesn't have more descriptive information and recommendations on how the department can either help a renter or a landlord navigate through this process. That's what I thought we were doing 60 days ago, was to create a clear process so that, so that we could move forward. But it's up to us, the city, to make sure that our laws are clear and, importantly, that we help people figure out the rules. So in moving forward today, I thought I would just try to make it real clear what we're doing, saying that you cannot evict someone solely for a substantial remodel, but also ensure that the housing department plays an active role in ensuring the clarity of this policy. Landlords deserve a clear set of rules, and we heard that from their representatives, of how they can make renovations, even if those renovations require the tenant to be dislocated for a period of time. I don't want us to stop renovations. What we want to stop is renovictions. And I think there's a fairly simple way to do this. The department should clearly and succinctly create rules that allow for a process where either the landlord pays the renter an agreed upon amount to relocate, or the city requires the landlord to provide equivalent or better housing while the renovation takes place, with the landlord paying all relocation expenses. My point is for folks to have options and to make it clear that we're not just banning a landlord from doing a substantial remodel. We're just saying you can't just evict someone solely for that reason. Finally, colleagues, I want to make it clear that renters are also still responsible to pay the rent, even if they're temporarily relocated. And again, I was hoping that what we would have in front of us today, like I was concerned because what we have in front of us today looks very much like where we were the last time we talked about this. And I didn't want to do a forever ICO because I wanted us to create a process where we could do it. So I've just gone ahead and created that process and put it in paper and have a series of recommendations, which I'll read now, which we talked about, which I think can be implemented. One is to adopt the CAO report sections 2, 4, and 5. Second is to adopt 1 or 2A1 with the LAHD report as follows. Adopt 2A of the LAHD report to request the city attorney, with the assistance of the Los Angeles Housing Department, to prepare and present an ordinance to the City Council to amend the Just Cause for Eviction Ordinance, Section 165.03, in order to adopt Option 1 in the Los Angeles Housing Department report dated May 20th, 2025, regarding recommendations to amend the Just Cause Eviction Ordinance, as well as any other pertinent or relevant provisions within the City Attorney may deem necessary. However, also to instruct LAHD to update information bulletins or on evictions and tenants' rights, including publicizing educational information and FAQs to help renters and landlords comply with the amended ordinance provisions. And then, importantly, which I was hoping would have come to us, but this is just laying it out, saying instruct LAHD to create or promulgate rules that include, but are not limited to, A, a process where the landlord pays the renter an agreed upon amount to relocate by mutual agreement, or B, requires the landlord to provide comparable or better housing while the renovation takes place, with the landlord paying all relocation expenses and paying the rent directly for this new temporary housing for as long as the renter is dislocated from the original unit. Allow the landlord to pay the renter for the temporary housing only if by mutual agreement. C, to require the tenant to pay the original landlord the monthly rent due prior to the required relocation during the relocation time period. This effectively maintains tenancy and prevents the rent eviction. And then D, requires the tenant to be returned to their original unit with any new rent increase not to exceed what's allowable, the 10% that's allowable by state law. And then finally, to adopt recommendations 5 of the LAHD report, instruct LAHD to assist the Rent Adjustment Commission to adopt rules and regulations necessary to implement the provisions of the option approved by the City Council. So basically saying, let's have a real clear way that folks, that landlords or housing providers can provide the substantial remodel, but in a way that maintains the tenancy and has a real clear sense of what needs to be done. And it's modeled similarly what happens in the RSO unit, but instead of going through all the bureaucratic procedures, it's a clear set of rules and regulations along the lines that I've put forward. Does that instruction work for you to make this, make it clear and have a policy that will work?
Good afternoon, council members. Anna Ortega, Assistant General Manager of the Housing Department.
Thank you.
I think those recommendations work. We can make them work.
If you could
Anna,
pull the
if
microphone
could,
down.
yeah, just make sure you're speaking.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Yes, I think that we can make those recommendations work. We can work with the Rent Adjustment Commission to adopt guidelines that would accomplish all of these points. The only clarification I would make is 5D, that talks about 10%, but it's not necessarily 10%. It's the amount allowed under state law, which is 5% plus the CPI. So right now, that's 8.9. But, that's just a technicality.
No, absolutely. I just said, the way I wrote it was, with any new increase, not to exceed what's required by state law.
Right.
And I put in parentheses the 10%, because that's the maximum, I think.
That's the maximum, correct.
But whatever it is, it's basically picking up state law, saying rent increases can only be what is allowed by state law, nothing more, nothing less. I mean, well, you can certainly do less, nothing more. But this prevents the rent. We basically prohibit evictions based solely on substantial remodel, but it does create a clear pathway for landlords to go through a remodel process. So,
I think with the understanding that the council approves a policy to disallow these evictions, we can make these parameters work and adopt rules to inform the public, both landlords and tenants, about the way forward.
great. No, and that's the recommendation. That's recommendation 3, which I read, which is basically disallowing it. But I didn't want to just do an indefinite extension of the moratorium, which is what the initial proposal looked like to me, because that didn't provide the clear pathway. So I wanted us to be voting on a very clear pathway of how renovations can occur. So we would be doing exactly what you suggested, which is we would prohibit the evictions, but we would be creating a very clear pathway of how tenancy can be maintained and what the landlord is required to do. Does that make sense?
We do need to adopt a permanent ordinance
Correct.
that needs to be, or something needs to be adopted before July 1st. So hopefully the council would approve a permanent ordinance disallowing the evictions, and we can go ahead and work on the guidelines.
Right, and I'd like them to be done simultaneously. So we're voting on disallowing it, and we're voting on these guiding principles, which is what the recommendations are today, that they're both together.
Understood.
Because I don't want the process to lag months or years behind, it shouldn't be that hard. I mean, that's why I laid it out in these steps. I mean, again, I was hoping we would have that today. That's what I thought we were, maybe I misunderstood, but I thought that's what we were instructing last time, so we would have those guidelines today so we could vote on it all together. We didn't. That's why I took the liberty of putting these 5 points together so that we have a clear process, and we just have to sort of put that into the appropriate format of the rules, and then we can vote on it all together. But yes, I'm agreeing with you that this is contingent on actually having a prohibition on evictions based on substantial remodel, because it's creating the process that you have to follow.
Okay. So I'm comfortable with this. I think with the understanding that the instruction for LAHD is not going to slow down the other process, because I think that was the big concern that I had when I heard the original recommendations, because we're under a time crunch for the original ordinance. So I'm comfortable with moving this forward in the manner you suggested, Councilmember Bloomfield. Any other questions? Do you have any other questions or comments? Councilmember Jurado? Okay, so with that.
I do have a question, Madam Chair.
Okay,
Just
Mr.
for
Verano.
clarification on the recommendations moving forward, would the committee like to move forward the recommendations as stated by Councilmember Blumenfield and note and file the CAO report and LHD report, and just move forward the recommendations that you stated, Councilmember?
Yes, I'm comfortable with that.
Well, to be clear, my recommendations included, number one was adopt the CAO report, sections 2, 4, and 5. So yes, to do this, it doesn't throw those other things away. Then it says adopt 2AI within the LHD report. It just lays it out.
Correct. So as stated, I would pull the recommendations from the CAO report that you stated to move forward, and I'll have those written out. But I just want to confirm.
And adopting option 1, parentheses 2AI within the LAHD report.
Correct. So those would still move forward. Just we do need to clarify what would happen with the other reports.
Perfect.
Yeah.
It should have been circulated.
Yes.
And it should be clear. Okay.
All right.
So if you're comfortable, Mr. Rano, we can call the roll.
Yes. Thank you, Madam Chair. Councilmember Rahman.
Yes.
Councilmember Jurado.
Yes.
Councilmember Blumenfield.
Blumenfield, aye.
3 ayes, and this item is approved as amended.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you to our LAHD staff who were here to answer questions. And let's move on to we have LASA staff here for item 1. And I want to allow you an opportunity to talk about CES. So this, Mr. Verano, if you want to read this item into the record.
Item number 1 is a verbal update from the Los Angeles Homeless Services Authority relative to the coordinated entry system.
Okay, so I put this item on the agenda at the request of LASA, who felt, I think they didn't have an opportunity to weigh in on the CES report discussion that we had on the very robust report that was produced by the CLA's office. And those recommendations have already been approved by this committee and sent on to the full council. But I did want to, we always want to hear from LASA. I think that there's been a lot on LASA's plate and different demands on your time for attendance at meetings. And so we're grateful to have you now. And if there's particular feedback that you have on any of those recommendations, I don't believe that motion has passed through full council yet, has it? I don't think so. I'll check on that. But if there's any changes or feedback that you have today, we're always welcome to take your testimony into account as we think through it as it moves through full council as well. So thank you, welcome, and I turn the floor over to you.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, members of the Housing and Homelessness Committee. My name is Gabriela Martinez. I am the Associate Director of Permanent Housing at LASA, overseeing the matching of PSH. Hearing CLA's report reinforced for me that conversations about CES matching need to happen more frequently, more publicly, and more often. That's why I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to be here today to answer the questions you raised based on the report. Specifically, I want to address the questions related to CES as a HUD requirement and who gets matched to PSH and from where. Additionally, I want to share with you the improvements that we've made in the past year to give you an updated picture of what's happening in CES PSH matching. First, I want to level set by saying that CES is a living, iterative, and highly collaborative process. It is not a rigid framework that is created in a silo. It's shaped by the voices and efforts of all who contribute to the housing response, and it continuously evolves to meet the needs of our community. In the handout, you can see the collective goals of the COC for PSH matching in page 2. With that, I want to address the first question that was raised. Is CES a HUD requirement? All continuums of care are required by HUD to maintain a coordinated entry system. This requirement was spelled out in the Hearth Act of 2009 and further defined through several HUD notices, including HUD Notice CPD 1701, issued in January of 2017. All continuums of care, including Los Angeles, Pasadena, Glendale, and Long Beach, have their own CES. This requirement is to ensure that the highest acuity people experiencing homelessness in our COC have equal and fair access to permanent supportive housing. LAHSA understands that the system of matching can be confusing, and we aim to fix that alongside our stakeholders like the City of Los Angeles, those with lived experience, subject matter experts, county departments, and others. In the year that I have been at LAHSA, we have worked closely in partnership with City Council Member Rahman, updating the metrics and data infrastructure guiding the matching process. We have also spent countless collaborative hours refining and improving vacancy to match processes with system partners. Combined, these efforts have resulted in very exciting progress reported monthly to the Homelessness Strategy Committee. The other question raised was who gets matched. When there's a permanent supportive housing unit that is available for match, our starting point is the community queue, which currently has 35,765 people in it. The community queue includes people who have eligible assessment scores and are actively enrolled in homeless programs that can help locate them and engage them in housing application process. It integrates data from HMIS with people served by DHS and DMH programs, as well as the non-HMIS Victim Service Provider portal. You could see more details on page 6. I do want to take this opportunity to provide some clarity on what PSH matching is and what is not. Matching is the process by which a person who is experiencing homelessness is identified and selected to be part of a batch that is invited to apply for a federal subsidy and for project-based PSH for a specific PSH unit. Matching does not guarantee that the participant will be interested in the unit or will be approved by property management or the Public Housing Authority. LAHSA does not have ownership of the building, nor does it decide who is approved for a federal housing voucher. Another question that was raised was regarding the proximity of the matches to the project-based PSH sites. I heard you share stories of people who were placed in PSH units in your council districts that came from different city or even across the county. I understand your concern and are in agreement that people should be given a chance to access PSH housing in their own communities. We have found that participants enrolled in programs closer to the buildings that we match them have ties to the community and nearby service connections that can support their housing application process. In the past year, we have made several improvements that allow for more successful matching to proximity, which you can see on page 7. In December of 2024, the matching team gained access to a geolocation tool called GIS that allows us to type in the address of the PSH building we're matching and see all of the nearby interim housing, housing navigation, safe parking, and access centers. Additionally, we requested the CES Policy Council to amend a matching guidance that allows us to relax document readiness requirements so that we can match people near to the site even if they are not fully document ready. This update to the policy has allowed us to open more matching opportunities for local eligible participants to be matched to buildings in their community. In addition to what I've mentioned, for your reference, in page 9 of the handout, there is a more complete list of strategies that we have led in the past 12 months to improve lease-up outcomes. But for the sake of time, I will not go over all of them. But I wanted to highlight a few of them for you that I believe have been the most impactful. When I came to LASA in April of 2024, I was asked for more communication and more transparency. The work we have done has been mindful of this request. We need bought-in and engaged partners in order to achieve our collective goals. Through problem-solving spaces, technical assistance, our PSH general meetings, weekly office hours, and new trainings, we have seen a marked improvement in our relationships with all partners, better understanding of PSH matching and collaboration. Match and move-in timelines were also targets of these strategies. We ramped up our technical assistance support, created pre-match active system management that starts at 6 months before TCO, rolled back the start of matching from 30 days to 60 days, developed new match and rematching timelines, and we universalized our lease-up trackers. A third area of focus has been addressing the barriers that more complex units face to get matched and leased, like ADA units. Through close collaboration with funders, developers, and ACHP, today we have several solutions in place that address those barriers and are helping us fill those units faster. Currently, I am working with DMH and DHS to develop tools and support for providers in obtaining verification of disability for their clients by eliminating barriers to obtaining them and broadening the clinical support available to them. We are also planning to bring a policy update for proposal to Policy Council that will help us address the challenges of matching Skid Row and SRO units. Finally, I want to share with you some positive outcomes. We established a goal of leasing up all new PSH buildings to 90% within 90 days from when the units are available for occupancy. Please see slide 11. For the given metrics, we work with HSC to track and compare 2 separate sets of city-funded project-based buildings. We are tracking the percentage of buildings that met the goal of 90% of occupancy within 90 days, and the average number of days that it took to reach the 90% goal. The baseline group consists of 15 buildings that were approved for occupancy from January to September of 2024, and the newest lease-up group that currently consists of 8 buildings approved for occupancy from October 2024 through March 2025. As of the end of May, we can see a significant improvement in both achieving 90% occupancy within 90 days and the length of time to reach 90% building occupancy when comparing new lease-ups to the initial baseline. There's a total of 31 city-funded buildings within this portfolio of baseline and newer lease-ups that we are closely monitoring for improvement and reporting to the city on a monthly basis. Again, I want to thank you for your time and for allowing me to come here and speak on the improvements that we've made, and we're open to questions now.
Thank you so much for that presentation. I wondered whether you might be able to talk a little bit, because I know this is an issue that comes up frequently about who is getting referred into PSH, where are they coming from? Can you talk about I know you mentioned that you have a GIS-related tool that allows you to match people who are within a particular vicinity. Can you share more about how you can report out on the impacts of that tool? Has it changed? Who's coming into these facilities? What kind of data are you able to collect about this? And how might that be able to be used by the city moving forward?
So we started, like I said, we gained access to this tool in December. And what we have found is that in combination of using this tool and also better communication with service providers and stakeholders in the community, we're able to pull preliminary information for matching when there's an upcoming building. Because what I'm focusing on is that pre-match active system management. How do we start working earlier on developing a match strategy to make sure that we are matching people from the community? And if we see, we pull a preliminary list. If we see that we're not finding people from nearby, we then connect with community providers and with interim housing and housing navigation to see why that is. So I know that our data team right now is working on fixing some of the kinks that are coming out when we're trying to gather this data. It's a very new tool that we're using, but overall we are seeing that we're able to have better visibility into the programs that are in the area and also see where the gaps are. Why are people not match ready in a particular area? What is a certain population missing? And then we're able to work collaboratively to address that and put more focus on match readiness.
What percentage of people who are on the list of matching, to be matched, because it's 35,000 is an absolutely enormous list, and given the number of people who are on it, it feels, I think, harder for me to understand why the rooms are hard to fill. What percentage of that 35,000 people have a geographic information included as part of their application or their information?
That's a really good question. I'm not sure I can answer that.
I don't have a specific number in front of me. We can get that for you. What I will say is there are specific programs that are more easily identifiable in terms of geography. Within our outreach programs, outreach staff record the place of residency where a person's encampment is within HMIS, and so we're able to record their location through that. And then the shelters are the most obvious because those are fixed locations where participants are staying for 30, 60, 90 days. And so we can be certain of where they are. Programs like housing navigation and even some of the access centers, while we know where the access center is, we may not know where the participant is staying. So the geographic tagging of where they are living and where they're coming from is more challenging, and those are some of the kinks that we're trying to work out with our data team and trying to figure out ways to best define what their location is so that we can define that data better as we're matching folks. We are matching proximity to the access center, but as access centers draw from fairly large areas, we may not, those participants may not be residing in the immediate area, and we're trying to get better clarity in terms of where folks are actually residing. We definitely support the idea of being able to match folks locally because they are connected to their resources there and are more likely to be successful. We also want to make sure that we're not excluding folks who are eligible and in need of resources just because they are more than a mile away from the site.
Okay. Other questions? Councilmember Blumenfield.
Okay, thank you. Couple of questions. One, just generally, you said you were talking about the CES system is required, and you said that it has to allow for the highest acuity members to have priority or to have equity or something to that effect. So what is the requirement? I know we have to have a CES system, but are there policy requirements that the Fed have that go into that CES system, or is that completely up to us or to the governing bodies?
So there are guidelines, not specifics. The federal government has left leeway to local communities to make some determinations. The broad guidelines are that there has to be a way to assess need, to be able to prioritize folks with need to the higher resourced programs.
But that was what you'd mentioned as well, but what does that mean? Prioritize people with need.
So in our community, we've determined that we are still using the VI SPDAT tool.
But then now we're doing what we could interpret that many ways, but what is the guidelines that how are they telling us that need has to be defined?
The federal government does not define that specifically.
So they just say
you need to have an assessment tool that will measure need for services, and that you will use that tool to appropriately assess people and assign people resources.
Okay.
It does not assign a specific
So
tool.
it doesn't say that someone of a certain acuity score has to go first or second or this or that. That is solely a discretionary, because I always hear we have to do this, we have to do that, and I've never heard who says who other than us. And then when it's us, there's a lot of finger pointing as which entity and within the us of LAHSA and LAHD makes that decision. But I want to be real clear right now, which is federal government, the requirement to have a CES does not come with any requirement as to how we define that need. That need is up to us entirely.
That is correct, that they require that you have a tool and that you use that tool to assess need and that you assign resources based upon that need. Here in Los Angeles, as a community through various bodies, the primary being the CES Policy Council that has representation from people with lived experience, service providers, county departments, the city of Los Angeles, LAHSA.
And I mean, I think it's great hearing this so clearly now, because for years, not by you guys, but I feel I've been gaslit on this issue of like, oh, the feds are requiring this is requiring that. That's all not true. It's all up to our governing bodies that we create.
The federal government does lay out certain structures in terms of governance, but does allow leeway within that governance to make determinations locally. That is the basis.
But in terms of what the actual requirements are from the federal government, I haven't heard any, other than we have to have a system.
If you want, I can spend time pulling them from the reference, but the citation that was given, and I can provide you a copy because I have an extra copy.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to look at it later, and that would be great. I mean, it's just, for me, that's an important breakthrough to have in the public, because this has been a real stumbling point on what we can and can't do. So I wanted to know about how we can get greater transparency over who is on the LAHSA matcher list. Like, will the city be able to see who exactly is matched? Or is there particular people in the city? How do we do that?
So generally speaking, we err on the side of protecting client privacy. Folks who have access to HMIS would be able to see the scores of particular individuals, but the access to the full list is generally held by LAHSA. So is there anyone in the city that can see that now? At the moment, no. We would need to speak with City Council in terms of what would be appropriate. The city attorney, sorry.
Okay, and this is going back, I mean, we've been talking about this one for years, about HMIS and having access to that and having city government trusted to some way, shape, or form to be able to see that list. I think that's really important that we get there.
I will share that part of the challenge is that those 36,000 include people across the county, not just LA City residents. So it includes folks from all over the county. It's not just LA City.
So what?
So in terms of privacy, I think folks who...
I mean, someone has, a person in the city of LA has just as much right to privacy as someone in Culver City or any other city. We as a government worker, have our same confidentiality. Oaths can be maintained wherever they are. I don't see how that matters. I'm not trying to be argumentative. I just that's why I was like, well, so what? We're not limited only to seeing LA. We're trying to see how the system works, and just as a LAHSA worker, who's hired by the city is not limited to the city folks. They're going to see everybody in the system. Also wanted to ask about, you say we as a city, can we start our own process to become our own COC?
I wouldn't be able to advise you appropriately on that. I'm not an expert in terms of federal guidance and how that works. My understanding is if the city did form its own COC, the area of Los Angeles would likely stand to lose significant investments from the federal government because disentangling contracts that have been in place for up to a decade now would likely mean that those would be canceled and that would have to be entering brand new as a competition as a separate COC.
What kind of contract? You talking about service provider contracts or what?
PSH contracts. Because those contracts were awarded to the
What contracts?
For permanent supportive housing
Oh, PSH
developments. Yes.
I mean, I don't know. If we did it prospectively, I don't know why it would make a difference.
That's just what I've understood from some conversations I've had with folks at HUD. Again, I wouldn't want to sit here and advise you in terms of what would be appropriate. I think that would be a conversation for the city to have with HUD.
Yeah, and I want to just also underscore that for the purposes of CES and the questions that we have about CES, the limitations that the CLA mentioned last time about why we were using CES, that it was mandated by the county. Is that right, John? That there was a county mandate, but that there was not a HUD mandate that we had to use this version of CES. The HUD mandate is what?
Well, it was, as I understood, a de facto mandate because if we didn't use CES, then they wouldn't pay for the services, ICMS services. So that we were effectively de facto forced into it.
If I can just respond, the county has not mandated the structure of CES. That is the way the CES functions has been determined by the CES Policy Council and the governing bodies of the continuum of care.
Right, but sorry, so Pranita is here, so I just want to make sure we're clarifying, because HUD mandates that you have to use a prioritization based on vulnerability.
Correct.
But
yeah, Pranita Matya from the CLA's office. I wouldn't use the word mandate. It's just like an agreement that we have been continuing where the city provides funding for permanent supportive housing, HACLA does subsidy, and the county provides wraparound services. So to stay within that system, the county, we have to use CES because the county is providing ICMS services at our PSH sites. And it's just, yeah, I don't think anyone is mandating.
Well, it's a de facto mandate. I've experienced this where we've been trying to get people from our interim sites into PSH because the county says, "Yo, yeah, you can put whoever you want in there, but we're not paying for it unless you use. We're not going to do ICMS unless you use our system." So we're effectively blocked. It is a mandate. It's a de facto mandate that we've been saddled with, and
there are certain funding sources in the development of permanent supportive housing sites that also require the use of the coordinated entry system. The state funding for Home Key does require the utilization of CES for the matching of the tenants to those units. I believe that the home funding that comes through the Department of Mental Health also has a similar requirement.
Again, through a coordinated entry system. But correct. The specific rules of this coordinated entry system are ones that we're putting together locally.
Right. And Home Key says CES or equivalent. It does not say we have to do this system that we've been saddled with. It just says we have to have an equivalent.
All of the sites that are Home Key sites in the city of LA, to my knowledge, have signed saying that they would utilize CES.
That what?
Have, in submitting the paperwork to receive funding from the state, did sign on to use the coordinated entry system for tenant selection.
Because we're over a barrel. Right? I mean, we have no choice. I mean, anyway, I mean, that's why we're trying. That's why we're doing this. We're trying to get the city involved in this so we can have some say in the policy and of what this CES looks like. But for me, it's felt like we've been put over a barrel. And even when you know, you were saying that they have a system that says, oh, they're going to look, before we look elsewhere, we're going to look in the immediate area. There's no saying of how exhaustive that look has to be. And it can be a very cursory look, like what I've experienced is we have these folks who've been dying to get into PSH. They get overlooked because the service provider hasn't had the money, they haven't set them up with the all the right paperwork, and so they immediately go to the next level, next ring, you know, out there. But we were able to have some success because my team went literally person to person and tried to fix that, and we were able to get more people in. But if there was a more exhaustive, if there was some rules or requirements about how exhaustive your search has to be, then maybe I'd be more comfortable with it. But as it is now, I kind of feel like they don't really want to look. They don't have to look too hard.
If I can just real quickly.
Actually, I would love to, I want to just get your feedback and then we can go to you, Nathaniel, if that's okay.
Sure.
Just because I think this speaks directly to the matching process.
Yes, thank you. So when it comes to the specific guidance of how to use proximity, we are currently working, there's a work group that's been developed where the city is involved. We have LAHD as part of it. Sarah Solon, who's been working with us on the side of the city, is also part of this group, where our current policy says that we match from within the area. That's the language of the policy. And so the matching team has interpreted and used this information to use, now that we have GIS, we look at the closest to the site and then expand out from there. But there is agreement that we need more guidance and more specific language when it comes to what does proximity mean, what program are we taking into consideration, and all of those items that you just mentioned. So there is a work group that's working on developing a recommendation for policy council so that it can become a policy of how we match to proximity. When it comes to identifying folks that are not match ready, one of the improvements that we've made this year is that we have ramped up our technical assistance support. So alongside with Keith from your office, our TA team has been going out into the community and also doing assessments and helping complete applications to make sure that those people that are in programs that may not have the capacity to get the match ready and complete applications are not being left out for matching. So this is something that we're very aware of. We want to make sure that we're addressing this gap in the matching pool so that people are not being left off. Like I said, the GIS tool is still being developed, it's still being improved, and so I'm sure that in the upcoming months we're going to have better data quality and more information about the people that are near, but we have made a considerable improvement in the visibility that we have. And then, like I mentioned before, that pre-match active system management that starts 6 months before specifically has a step in it that targets that concern. So we're pulling a preliminary match list and see who is coming up. And if we're seeing that there's not enough people from the surrounding area, and we know that there's an interim housing site, there's an encampment there, why are they not coming up for us? We work collaboratively to make sure that we are targeting those sites and providing that support so that by the time we start matching, 60 days before TCO, those people are now match ready and visible to us in the community queue.
John Wickham with the CLA's office. To some of the recommendations in the CLA report, we're getting exactly to some of the ideas that Gabriela is talking about, improving match ready. We were using the term lease ready and one of the changes in the system beginning July 1st is that there will be case managers in all of the interim housing sites. So those case managers will be working to make sure that the occupants of those sites will have all of the documentation they need to be ready to be matched, rather than having some of it ready. right? So there's an active process of working with clients continually rather than waiting until the end when a match opportunity comes forward and they may not be ready. So the system is being structured, and the recommendations we have in there are driving to this point of do all of the work possible as soon as possible to get somebody ready so that when that match opportunity comes, they can be matched. The other one in there is in talking in the interviews we did with service providers and HACLA and others, we found that the universal housing application is still an evolving tool, that there are errors that are coming in on those applications, and that slows down the process. LASA has a training process for that, but there's probably some work that needs to be done and that would be productive in making sure that the universal housing application comes in correct the first time. And so I think everybody, LASA, the service providers, the city, are working hard to identify all of these details to enhance and improve the ability to connect somebody to housing when they're available.
Madam Chair, I'm going to have to run. And
Yes.
it's all very encouraging. It's frustrating to me because the last several months I've been having a lot of lease-ups, which is great, but I don't get the benefit of any of this stuff. So thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you. Councilmember Corrado, do you have questions?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I think the continuing conversation and the frustration I share with my colleagues about the CES system being somewhat arbitrary or self-imposed, right? And not necessarily mandated, all the mechanics of it, and how it seems like because HMIS was the tool, the data tool that we had at the time, it has now become the major determinant of how our system is operating, which to me seems like the tail is wagging the dog. And so as we continue to think about integration and data points, as you talk about city and county partners coming together, I mean, I had an extensive briefing with LA Sanitation because they have an extremely detailed data tool also that shows where, unhoused folks are congregating as well and cleanups happen, which can provide additional data points as to where calls are going to come in and proximity points as well. And so I think that integration, as you continue to build, I have to remind myself to be patient. But I hear that there's some improvements to proximity from the last conversation we just had with Councilmember Blumenfeld. But at the same time, I have no assurance about the transparency point and that the city is going to receive this information or we can do something with it. Especially considering we give a third of our total. To me, I'm going to go on a tangent about how the Joint Powers Authority is flawed and that agreement needs to be revised because, even in a corporation, if you're a third, like you invest a third of the money and you're half of the board, you should be able to see the receipts as a investor, and yet we don't get to see that visibility, even though we are kind of like a super investor in this project, just to speak in corporate terms. And so wondering how we can get this transparency and the data coming back to us. And then how can we get rid of CES? Or thinking about how we can change it and who are the deciders on those issues.
So if I may, a couple things. For one, HMIS is mandated by HUD as the data system of record for tracking all homeless services. So the use of HMIS is not a tool that LASA or the county or anybody else said this is what we need to use. It is a mandated system by HUD. Secondly, we have been very actively seeking ways to be better at sharing data. We've published several dozen dashboards in the last year that give much more visibility into all parts of our system and have been bringing regular data sets to the Homeless Strategy Committee as well. And so we'd be glad to hear from you specifically in terms of what pieces of data that you feel like you're lacking, and so that we can work collaboratively with you to ensure that we can get to that place of sharing the data that you feel like you need to have to be able to see how the system is functioning and that you're getting your money's worth from that system. We want to be collaborative partners with that.
And
have
what
been heavily
strategy
investing.
committee are you talking about, and who's on it?
The Homeless Strategy Committee of the city that is chaired by Councilmember Rahman.
Yeah, it's an internal committee, Councilmember, that was put together as part of a document that was passed in, I think, 2015 called a Comprehensive Homeless Strategy for the City of LA. And it's like the Municipal Facilities Committee. It's an internal, interdepartmental committee. So it has CAO, CLA, Chair of Homelessness, is that it? And the Mayor's Office represented on it. And it's supposed to provide some level of operational oversight. It initially started off doing that. Then it was really ramped up during the first phase of the roadmap agreement, where that committee was used as a way to kind of oversee the rollout of roadmap beds, and then meetings were not being held regularly, and we're basically utilizing that as a way to facilitate public and transparent conversations between the different departments that have been engaged on homelessness, again, in keeping with the original intent of the committee.
Okay, and then for the CES Policy Council, can you tell me a little bit more about who's on that and the cadence of when they meet and their influence on the CES policy writ large?
Yes, and I can get you the link to our website that'll give you much more details, but the CS Policy Council meets monthly. It is, I believe it's 27 members, I'd have to verify, between 20 and 30 members that include representatives from the City of LA, specifically from LAHD and HACLA, LACDA, Department of Health Services from the county, the Department of Mental Health from the county, LASA, representatives of a variety of service agencies, including PSH providers, and other homeless service providers. So it's a cadre of folks from across the county. It also includes representatives with lived experience.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much. One final question I had before we wrapped was, there was a report that was recently released about the Skid Row Housing Trust's collapse, which identified CES as a potential source for ongoing challenges as part of our PSH portfolio. It cited data that showed that before and after the introduction of CES, the number of vacancies, percentage of vacancies across the Skid Row Housing Trust portfolio increased sharply after CES was introduced, and also looked at data that said for the entire PSH sector that CES had been an ongoing factor in vacancy rates, but the data from Skid Row Housing Trust was very clear, but in terms of identifying issues with CES, I think was more anecdotal. I would appreciate your comments or feedback on that, because that seems like a real problem, that if the CES model itself is leading to higher vacancy rates across the system, then, and I know this work is geared towards addressing that, but.
Yeah, I think a couple quick things. One, just the obvious that correlation does not necessarily mean causation. I think there were significant challenges with the Skid Row housing portfolio, including the buildings were falling apart around the tenants, that many of the buildings were
Yeah,
unsafe.
this was before the challenges that the buildings were facing.
Even early on, there were significant challenges in being able to get folks to accept and be willing to move into units in Skid Row. I will say
what the report found was that initially they were full or fuller, and then they fell in vacancy. So
yeah,
that's not a change necessarily.
I think early on in the development of the coordinated entry system, there were definite challenges. I mean, we've been addressing them over the course of years. To take a system, a problem with homelessness as large as Los Angeles has, and figure out a systemized way of addressing it is a tremendous challenge.
Right.
I think we've made dramatic improvements in how the coordinated entry system works. I think the other piece that we need to be careful of is that speed of match is not the only piece that we've been balancing. We saw significant changes in relative to who was being matched in terms of racial demographics and age demographics that shifted with the beginning of the coordinated entry system, where we saw more people of color getting matched and folks with higher need getting matched, so that providers who were operating sites were no longer able to choose people that were going to be the easiest to house, but were required to take on people with higher needs and didn't meet their ideal tenant selection. Right. So it's an important piece of why the system was developed. Quick second. And then the other piece is that it, sorry, you interrupted me, I don't know.
Actually, Gabriella, could you talk about the changes that we've been making to the infill on CES?
Sure. So we've been working collaboratively on really looking at the different data sets that speak to occupancy of PSH buildings. And what we found is that because there's a disconnect in that data sharing and also what we're tracking in our individual agencies, there's very varied information about occupancy. Additionally, some of the data that we found for LAHD included non-CES units as well, units that are put on hold that are not available to match. And so we've been doing very significant work in making sure that there is alignment and that there is reconciliation across the data to have better information about which units that are not utilized are truly available for matching. So we're meeting on a weekly basis, and John, I'm not sure if there's anything else you want to add, but what we found is that the actual number of units that are not utilized that are available to match are minimal.
Sorry,
go ahead.
not that. Maybe we can talk about that later, because I don't think that's quite accurate. There are units that are under abatement that are not available for matching at all, but there are units that need matches that haven't been getting matches. So I think there's problems across the system, and I know you guys are working to address it, but I don't want to minimize the challenges in terms of vacancies and things like that. And I think one of the bigger issues here is also just that flagging a vacancy by a developer doesn't always trigger the matching process beginning at LASA, which is part of what we're trying to fix through this. So anyway, it's all good. I think we can come back to some of the ongoing challenges, but one of the big things that is really important for me is that, yes, these problems have been talked about for a long time, but we have not tracked data that can show progress in addressing the problems over time. And if we don't do that, then we can talk about them endlessly. We can have anecdotal evidence that shows real challenges with the system, but we're never going to see whether any of these great changes that you're making in the process that you shared with us are actually addressing the bigger issues. And so I think looking at our overall vacancy rates, looking at time to fill of each unit and tracking that against a baseline regularly every single month, that is the only way forward to me. So I want to thank you all for being here. We have, I know it's already 4:20, we still have one item to go, and LAHD has been waiting patiently. And I want to thank you guys for your inputs, and I think the work you've been doing has been really dedicated and focused, and we've really appreciated your partnership on improving the matching process, because I think we have seen improvements. But we have room to grow, and we need to demonstrate to people that we're growing, and I think that's what the data on that last slide shows, is that we are making change. So let's figure out how to talk about proximity. Let's figure out how to capture that data and really show it and show that progress. And that way our work is unassailable. When we are doing the work to make improvements, we can demonstrate, yes, indeed, those improvements are actually having impact. So thank you so much.
One last comment just to
Yeah,
share.
please.
We are actively working on the development of a PSH dashboard with our CS Policy Council that will be allow us to see longitudinally how we're making progress. So
Great.
Just want
Okay,
to make sure
that's helpful. Yeah, thank you so much. And that'll be system-wide, right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you
Thanks,
so much.
guys. Next, let's move on to our last item, which is item 6, I believe.
Item number 6 is the Los Angeles Housing Department report relative to pausing future expenditures of affordable housing linkage fee program receipts collected in fiscal year 2023-24, scheduling a meeting of the AHLF Oversight Committee, requesting an AHLF fiscal year 2023-24 expenditure plan and possible alternative tier allocation structures and related matters.
Okay, great. And LHD, if you wanted to join us at the table. So this is, Councilmember Jurado, we've read the report. I don't know whether you wanted to make a brief presentation or Councilmember, if you had questions. Would you like the presentation? I have one question. Go ahead.
Hi there. I'd like to ask about the real-world impact of the program on housing availability and affordability, given the report details how the linkage fee has been allocated and spent, but does not address the actual outcomes for residents. Do you have information on how many affordable housing units funded by the linkage fee have actually been completed and are currently occupied by low-income residents?
Thank you for the question. This is Hannah Levian from the Los Angeles Housing Department. So in the rental new construction category, I think that's what you're talking about. For program receipts, total number of units in linkage fee funded projects year to date here, 688. That is not exhaustive of the number of units that have been produced through the Affordable Housing Managed Pipeline. That's what the amendment is asking the Housing Department to address is, as I understand it, how many units have been created under that program.
What amendment are you referring to?
I was handed an amendment, I believe, by CD3.
I don't believe there is an amendment.
Sorry.
So we have one, but it wasn't introduced officially by Councilman Blumenfield.
Say that again?
So there was an amendment circulated, but it wasn't officially introduced by Councilmember Blumenfield while he was here.
Okay.
And I don't have a copy.
I'm so sorry.
No,
sorry, the amendment just says, direct the Los Angeles Housing Department to report back with all funding sources and the allocated versus expended amounts for each of the program categories listed in the Affordable Housing Linkage Fee report. And, sorry, Mr. Verano, I just have a question for you. This is asking for us to pause, to take an action to pause the ongoing, sorry, maybe I can ask you.
Yes.
What is LHD, what is the recommendation here that we're voting on today?
Yes, so today, what you have before you is a recommendation to pause expenditures for program receipts collected 23-24, given pending litigation.
Okay.
And so you're looking at just information of how the linkage fee has performed year to date and what the balances are of those program receipts from the past. So I'm sorry about the amendment bringing it up.
No, that's okay. But I was confused.
Yeah, so basically, we will be returning to this committee hopefully in August once that lawsuit has come to an end. The reason why we recommended pausing it is because there may be financial implications. So we will be returning with a normal expenditure plan and potential recommendations to revise the tiered allocation system since so much has changed in the last 5 years. And that was direction given by the Oversight Committee. So that's what you're approving today.
Okay. So do you need this amendment in order to report on this? This would be part of your regular report?
Everything we need approved today is already in the report. The amendment asks us to report back with more data, so.
And the amendment, Madam Chair, if you'd like, you can introduce it on behalf of the council member Blumenfield, but if not, he can also introduce it in full council.
Okay, yeah, why don't we do that then?
Okay, yeah. But back to your question, Councilmember Jurado, I can get you more information about, that will be as a follow-up to this. If the other council member introduces it in full council, I can also just email it to your staff. And then as well as the number of units that have been leased up of that number of projects and units.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions, Councilmember?
No further questions.
Okay, well, thank you. Given the time and potential quorum issues we are up against, I'm comfortable moving these recommendations forward, and I'll, if Councilmember Blumenfield wants to introduce this in full council, that's fine. We're also working, hopefully, with the department to figure out a more comprehensive way of reporting affordable housing production in the city overall, which can help us, which we talked about when Elizabeth was here last time, where we're going to look across every program, identify the dollars spent, and units produced, and have a sense of where they are in their process, and whether funds have actually gone out the door, whether they've been identified as program sources, et cetera. So I'm hopeful that that will give us a better way of responding or kind of overseeing this, that isn't just procedural oversight, but really is kind of oversight over the bigger pot of money, and that allows us to understand a complex set of sources that we have for financing. So with that, I want to recommend that we approve the recommendations before us.
Councilmember Rahman.
Yes.
Councilmember Jurado. Yes. Councilmember Blumenfield absent, 2 ayes, and this item is approved.
Great, and I believe that's everything on our agenda.